link sorted. But if you don't want to be involved in that, please turn off your camera there. We will make it live on the YouTube channel of Athena as well afterwards. So if you've got other colleagues that want to listen in and hear what the presenters have got to say, they can do so. There will be an opportunity at the end of each of the presentations for questions. However, if you've got questions you'd like me to answer, please put them in the chat and I will do so at the end of each of the presentations. Without further ado, and again, lastly, apologies for the delay in getting to this point, but Hugh, would you like to introduce yourself and hear what Generation UK have got to offer?
Yeah, of course, Nathan. One housekeeping question. How long would you like me to take?
Well, originally I had you down for 25 minutes.
I think I can do a presentation in 10 with 5 minutes questions to get us up to 1/2 past. Does that work?
That'd be perfect. Yeah, thank you, Hugh.
Fantastic. Cool. I'm going to, I can't share my screen. So would you like me to share my screen or just talk off the cuff?
You can share your screen if you want, or do you want...
Only meeting organisers can share. Or you're on mute now, Nathan.
Abil, please, can you help you out and share the screen for Hugh?
Well, while the screen is being shared, I can introduce myself.
Yeah, 1 second.
Okay, cool. So, hey everyone, I am, perfect, here are the slides. Thanks, Abil. I'll give you some prompts. So my name's Hugh and I'm from an organisation called Generation. We're a global not-for-profit and we're a charity in the UK. The blue slide, please, Abil. And we are a global not-for-profit with a mission to support people who face barriers to employment into life-changing careers they would otherwise not access, and at the same time provide employers with the highly skilled, diverse, motivated talent they need at the entry level. So matching people who are struggling to find work with employers who need great hires. That's what we do as a not-for-profit on a global basis. To date, we've done that with 46,000 people. That number changes every week, so I hope my statistics are in date. And the key thing that I always point out is that our programs achieve 80% job placement rate. So that means 80% of the people we're supporting through our model, which I'll come on to in a moment, are securing work. This means we're achieving our charitable mission and also employers are hiring the people we train and work with. So really exciting. Next slide, please. For a little bit more about us. So this just shows you a little bit about our scale. We're across 170 cities. We've worked with 46,000 people, over 4,000 employers and over 80% job placement rate. So yeah, we're a truly global organisation that hope we know what we're doing in this space of education to employment. But what do we do? Next slide, please, Abil. We have a particular methodology. And so I know there's 7 steps on this page, but if you're only going to remember one of them, it's number 3. So we run full-time, multi-week, profession-specific training boot camps with a particular methodology and pedagogy, i.e. we take people in on a Monday and 4 to 12 weeks later, depending on the program, on a Friday at 5 p.m, they graduate from our support and we teach them the profession-specific technical skills, behaviours and mindsets they need to know. More broadly, step 1, we find employers who have a hiring need, in this case, retrofit, and I'll come on to some more about that. 2, we run it with a really wide net. We work with DWP, the Prince's Trust, housing associations, movement to work, Street League, community recommendations and word of mouth referrals to find generally young people who have a passion and motivation for the career in question, but are facing barriers. We prioritise diversity. Our cohorts in the UK are 67% BAME, 30–40% long-term unemployed, and I can keep going, but really diverse groups who are struggling to find employment, but who are really convincing about why they want to work in a particular sector, and we select them and choose cohorts of 2025. That brings us to step 3. We then take them through multi-week programs designed with employers to target a particular role, and today I'll talk about our new Retrofit Advisor program. We then get to step 4. At the end of the program, we matchmake those learners with opportunities and employer partners in that area of need or that profession of need. 5, during that process and afterwards, we provide wraparound pastoral or mentorship support. And then steps 6 and 7 are all about trying to do this well, making sure we're delivering impact for our employers and students and learners and measuring data at every step to make sure we're constantly improving and tracking what we do. So that's what we do. If you remember one thing, it's profession-specific training programs. If you remember a bit more, it's a wide net, profession-specific training, active partnership with employers and mentorship support. That's us in a nutshell. Next slide, please, Abil. Cool. So just a bit of a deep dive on the type of people we work with. So this is a tech boot camp in London. This is actually from the end of 2020, about a year ago, but there's multiple examples in the meantime. This was a cohort of 23 learners, all 18 to 29, all with the right to work in the UK, all NEET, not in education, employment or training, and all with a very convincing passion to launch a new career in tech. And they were filtered down from actually 10 to 1 in terms of applicants to places on that basis. and they were referred by DBP, the Prince's Trust, and family and friends. 30% of them were unemployed for at least 6 months, over 50% female, and over 80% BAME. And that's just an example of a cohort. In Manchester, our BAME percentage is a little bit lower, but still generally around 60–65%, just reflecting the population that's in the city. But the other statistics and generally how we approach this is the same. So they're the type of people we work with. Next slide, please, Abil. Cool. So why are we here today? Well, we saw a graph like the one on the left, which broadly shows predictions for huge amounts of employer demand for skills and skilled people to deliver work to improve the energy efficiency of our buildings. This is heat pump installers, solar panel installers and fitters, smart meter people, and crucially, people within retrofit roles, coordinators, assessors, advisors, designers, and specialist installers. When we see graphs like the one on the left at Generation, we get excited because this means employer demand for people with skills. We spoke to a whole bunch of employers. Actually, I've interviewed over probably 150 in the scoping for this new program I'm about to explain, and they all, without exception, explained a difficulty finding diverse, motivated talent at the entry level. So we leapt on this opportunity and said, yes, we'd like to help, and we'd love to run a green jobs training program that does two things. Provides employers with the talent, with entry-level talent pipelines they need for one, and in the future, multiple of these different jobs. And two, provides life-changing opportunities to individuals who face barriers to employment. We ran a shortlisting process and we went through a whole bunch of different jobs. I think we had a long list of 20, 25, and we brought that down to 3 to 4. And then we began and we chose our final one. And we're now launching a Retrofit Advisor program in partnership with the Retrofit Academy. So next slide, please. First of all, what's a Retrofit Advisor? So many people on this call may know this, many may not. It is a term that is listed in the regulation around this called PAS 2035, but independent of how much regulation you read or your particular organizational structure, people who do the role of a retrofit advisor do two things. They provide support and advice to individuals and customers undergoing retrofit processes, i.e. someone in the private pay or public pay market, i.e. a housing association is doing this work for an individual, or an individual is paying for this work themselves to improve the energy efficiency of their property, has questions, doesn't know what grant funding they need, doesn't know when the installer is coming, doesn't know what the next step is. There was a problem in the next step. They're not actually saving any money on their heating bill afterwards. Potentially they've got their system set up wrong. An individual with this skill set can triage, listen to, respond and help with those kinds of queries. And they're trained to be a customer support advisor, but with a specialist skill set. That's thing one in their role. And thing two in their role is supporting retrofit coordination and assessment processes, i.e. working with project managers, coordinators, assessors, delivering this work to help with the relevant administration, collecting documentation, submitting grant requests, booking installers in and tracking the fact that they've been to the property, all the kind of associated administration around those roles into which they may progress. So we're going to run a boot camp that trains for these roles. So in a bit more detail, could we scroll to the next page and actually go 2 pages down, please. So skip this page into the next page for time. Cool. So I know this is a bunch of text on this page, but just to give you a bit more detail about what our program will be. So working with the Retrofit Academy, we've designed a 10-week program that will launch in London in November. And that program will do exactly what I've been describing. It will throw a really wide net, recruit 20 to 25 learners, teach them, and then place them with employers at the end who have hiring needs for those type of roles. Just a little, this page is a double click on that teaching. And I appreciate we don't have time to read all the text on this page, but broadly, we're going to teach them loads of specific technical information about retrofit so that when they launch, they're ready to go and they're equipped with sort of skills and understanding that would help them in this role. So the sort of topics are listed on the left, or at least the high level technical curriculum elements are listed on the left. So this includes an introduction to retrofit basics, the role of the retrofit advisor within retrofit processes, how to deliver retrofit advice in practice, how to support consumers, and good professional administrative work practices. And this is within a particular generation pedagogy where we do loads of practice, so loads of role plays and case studies based on real information and real examples. And we also where we go big on mindsets and behaviours, which are absolutely key for junior talent. So we're talking personal responsibility, future orientation, goal setting, communication, working in teams are explicit parts of our curriculum. You know, and I'd love to go through the more detail of the curriculum we're going to deliver, but I think that's good enough at a high level. Next slide, please. We are launching this program as described in London in November, but that's our pilot program, and we have operations and boots on the ground in all these areas, specifically Greater Manchester, top left, and well, top left bubble linked to where Greater Manchester actually is. We would love to run this program in Manchester next year. i.e. train learners for Retrofit Advisor roles for employers in the city, focusing on those from diverse groups and particularly the groups that have been hardest hit by the pandemic. And we'd love to run it. And that's the point of this call, is to sort of begin gauging and begin building employer interest. So this is my final slide, really. And the next slide just lists my email address. So maybe we move to that just to round up, and then I have 5 minutes for questions. So broadly, we'd love to run this program in Manchester next year. That doesn't just happen by itself, although we can do almost all of it. The bit that we can't do is create jobs or have or to sort of, be an employer. We need to find employers and talk with employers who have a hiring demand for this role in the city, which we know is there based on the information we've received from the council, from government departments, from advisory bodies. However, we haven't got that employer base. And for us to launch a program in Manchester requires us to have a list of employers who are hiring for and have junior entry-level talent needs next year. Once we have that sort of critical mass of employers, probably once we've got 10 to 15 vacancies that look pretty warm and pretty likely for the type of thing that an employer would interview for, then we would love to run this program in the city next year. So that's what we're doing right now. We're building our employer base for next year in the city, and I'd love to hear from you. So my email address is there, and I'd love to talk about hiring needs. I've rushed through a little bit because of time, but hopefully that was exciting, high energy, and we've got maybe 2 minutes for a couple of questions before the next slot. Does that work?
Thank you, Hugh. Really appreciate that, and really interesting to hear about how you target specific groups, which I know as social landlords we probably highlight in terms of removal of those barriers for those groups. Has anybody got any questions at all? Went through it that quick, Hugh, that everyone's digesting the information.
Of course.
No, what kidding. Just a couple of questions from me then, Hugh.
Yep.
In terms of referrals and also the actual delivery of the course, is the delivery of the course going to be a physical location, or is it a mixture of remote learning as well as physical? And in terms of support for those people who haven't got access to IT equipment, if it is virtual, how does that work, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, great question. So we're currently delivering all remotely. The jury's out on how much in-person delivery we do next year. And historically we delivered in person. But for a course like this, there are limited benefits to being in person. There's not a sort of physical element to this role, and we think we can keep good, and we show that we can get good outcomes and engagement from remote delivery. So chances are this will be primarily remote delivered over Zoom or a classroom like this, similar to how we deliver the majority of our programs. We ensure there are no barriers to access for learners, so they're free. And for any learner that doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection or laptop of sufficient quality to access the course, or a secure working environment where they can securely and dependably access those things, we provide all three. So we provide a laptop, we provide a Wi-Fi dongle, and access to a sort of WeWork style facility to access the course if required. So there should be no barrier to an engaged and motivated learner accessing.
That's brilliant, because I know that would be a common question. I've got no doubt would probably come up. Maybe other people was thinking about it, but maybe just a little shy to actually ask it today. The other question I was going to ask was in terms of the employee relationship, and the just in case anyone on here in terms of themselves as an organisation was part of their supply chain is in referrals to you for actual learners. How does that work as well in terms of, is it just a case of emailing you? Is it something we could coordinate and send you a list so we've got, right, okay, we know how many people from us are coming to see you on that course?
Yeah, 100%. Great question. I'm going to not answer the question, then answer the question. Not answering the question, that's actually less important for us to make this program real compared to employers. So step one, and the problem we need to solve first, is the jobs that we're going to align to this program, because that's the thing that makes everything else easier. The more concrete and more real the jobs, everything else flows. However, when we get to the youth recruitment stage, once we've confirmed a cohort launch date, about 2 months, 3 months before cohort launch, we open applications. And when we open applications, we post a page on our website, and then that has a link to click here and apply here. And then we throw that link and flyers around everyone we can find, and particularly prioritising groups like housing associations. We do that a lot in London, for example, that work with these groups. And then we encourage employability coaches, community outreach workers, etc., to refer learners to that web page to click apply. And we're happy to support them or talk to them during that process, but the way in is via clicking apply on our website. And that enters then a small online assessment and an inclusive interview process, which is not about assessing for interview acumen, but for looking for barriers and motivation. It looks like, if I've got 2 minutes, it looks like there's a question now from someone in the house.
Sam, Sam, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. How is this funded, and is it chargeable to employers or learners?
Yeah, great question. So we actually have a patchwork funding model that depends on the time that we run a program and the location and the particular funding that we have in play. It's likely that we might be able to fund a pilot bootcamp without employer payments, but the long-term model for how we fund ourselves as a charity does involve employers paying per hire. So there's no payment to interview or be involved with the process, but if you take on a learner, we normally operate on a small employer payment per hire. For a program like this, that would likely be in the 1 to 2K kind of range per hire, which is competitive and hopefully delivers, as I say, return on investment relative to other sources. Unclear specifically what the exact funding model would be for the cohort in Manchester, as it would depend on how quickly we can find employer demand and exactly when we run it. But there are lots of ways to fund programs like this without asking huge sums from employers.
Okay, great. So when we use the word bootcamp in the presentation, that's a term from Generation. It's not specifically a Department for Education bootcamp.
So we were doing boot camps maybe before they got cool and the Department of Education started funding them at scale. They're the same thing. So that's the same model. The Department of Education skills boot camps is one way of funding work like this and is likely a funding source that we'll seek for this work next year. But there are other funding sources that, for example, we don't have that funding in Leeds and we still run boot camps like this in Leeds. So it's just one way of funding the same work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. And I suppose in terms of just a time frame, you mentioned there about kind of like almost a 3-month running to it. And so in terms of job opportunities, that if anyone on this call are thinking about having a retrofit advisor, would that be in the first quarter of the new financial year, i.e. April onwards? Is that the?
So I think the timeline from here is speak to me over the next few months. If you've got a hiring need in Manchester for this type of role, let's get in contact and establish a dialogue in the next few months. Early next year, we sort of confirm the employer partners, and then calendar Q2 next year, so spring next year, we run a first program based on that employer demand. And that will also allow us to take the learnings from the pilot program in London, which launches next month.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hugh. And if no one else has got any other questions to come in, we will be sharing the slides. So if you didn't take Hugh's email address down, don't stress too much about that. We will get the slides out to everyone and you can get in contact with Hugh that way. Or failing that, if you get hold of Abil and myself, we'll share that with you directly. Thanks, Hugh. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Right, okay, quickly moving on. Our next presenters are Stephanie and Lucy from Northwest Skills Academy. They have got the Low Carbon Academy as part of Northwest Skills Academy, which I'm sure that Steph and Lucy will go into a bit more detail about, and talking about their retrofit boot camps that they currently have available, as well as courses that upskill the existing workforce. So Steph, Lucy, if you're there, and we can either share your presentation or you can share it yourselves.
Yeah, hi Nathan. So I'm Steph. I'm currently having some technical issues with my camera, but I'm going to be sharing the presentation through my screen anyway. So I will just get that up now. Bear with me. Brill, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Perfect. So as Nathan said, myself and Lucy are part of Northwest Skills Academy and Low Carbon Academy. What we're going to run through today with you is how we support people who are currently unemployed, employed, and through your supply chain. So this presentation is going to be in 2 parts. So I'm going to run through who we are, why we are here today, and then talk about the boot camps and then open up for some questions. Then the second part of the presentation will be focused on the task ahead, our success to date and how we can support your workforce with the funded training, and then we're going to finish up with some more questions. So yeah, I'll get started. So we are North West Skills Academy. We are an MVQ construction education and training provider. The company was established in 2013 and has already assessed the competence of over 6,000 tradespeople from MVQ level 2 to level 6. We work with learners, employers, construction sector forums, including construction training industry bodies, National Installation Association, FENSA and local enterprise partnerships, local authorities to ensure our offer is relevant to local, regional and national skills and industrial strategy and meets the needs of industry, employers and learners. Last year, North West Skills Academy launched the Construction EPA company, offering final assessments to construction apprentices. So what is the Low Carbon Academy? The Low Carbon Academy is a retrofit training arm of the North West Skills Academy. In 2013, we launched in Greater Manchester to upskill existing construction workers into Green Deal roles, such as Green Deal advisors, installer of retrofit systems, and advise businesses on how to become PAS 2030 compliant. Since then, our team of experts have supported over 2,000 individuals across 900 businesses to become upskilled and compliant in the retrofit market. And we currently have over 400 people in learning on our retrofit qualifications and are supporting business to be compliant with the latest PAS 2035. So the Skills Bootcamp for Retrofit, we are working in partnership with Procure Plus Holdings, and we currently have 225 fully funded places available on our Retrofit Bootcamp. It's a flexible course which lasts up to 16 weeks, so it gives the opportunity to build up sector-specific skills and fast-track to an interview with a local employer. There's a theory and practical based course, and then there is application of the CSCS card on completion of the course. All the boot camps are delivered at the Cube in Manchester, and it's for career changes and for anyone who's looking to upskill retrofit delivery in the workplace. So the eligibility for these boot camps is that they are for unemployed people and people who are looking to change the career but are already working in construction and have some experience in the construction trade. They must be a Greater Manchester resident, and they also must be age 19 plus. So the Skills Bootcamp for Retrofit. So there's 150 places for unemployed and new entrants to retrofit, and 75 of those places are for individuals who currently work with the construction industry and who are looking to transfer to the retrofit sector or learn retrofit skills. The Low Carbon Academy is looking to deliver the following pathways in practical skills in installation, practical skills in fenestration. We've got the Level 2 Understanding Domestic Retrofit, the Level 3 Insulation and Building Treatments, internal, external and underfloor insulation, fenestration, energy efficient measures for older and traditional properties, and then the Level 3 Retrofit Assessor. We carry out the health and safety training course to secure CSCS cards, and then on-site workplace skills training for job movers, with a guaranteed interview for candidates completing bootcamp. So following the first half of the presentation, is there any questions up to now that people may have?
Thanks for that presentation. That was really useful. Oh, I've got somebody with a hand up here. Let me figure out who that is.
It's me, Tracy.
Oh, sorry, Tracy. Would you like to come in and ask your question?
Hi. What it is that you says that it's for people who are in employment for that have already got the experience in construction in that. Is that the same for people who are unemployed? Have they got to have that experience, or are they going to?
No, not if they're unemployed. They don't need to have that experience. If they're looking to change career, then they would need some construction background there, but not if they're unemployed.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Tracy. Is there any more questions before I ask a couple? Very, very quiet out there today. Okay, so first one from me is the Cube in Manchester. I've just had a quick Google of that because I was thinking I don't recognise that except for kind of like the apartment block. Is that where it's taking place, or have you actually got a specific site where the training is that is not an existing building, or is that part of the whole course and they're actually working on a building site at the moment?
Yeah, so it's delivered in a range of places. So what the boot camps are about, what we proposed is a pick and mix. So if a learner comes to us who've got they're in a job, a perfect example of this is maybe a plasterer who wants to get into external wall insulation and work on retrofit projects. They've already got them skills, they've got transferable skills, they need upskilling. That would all be delivered in the workplace and online. If it was an unemployed person looking to get into the insulation market, we would deliver that in the Cube where we've got insulation systems set up. So it all depends on the learner. You know, we could have a learner that purely wants to do understanding domestic retrofit, which can be done remotely or face-to-face. So what we've got here is just based purely on learner and employer needs, and we just work with that.
Thanks, Sam. And in terms of the funding that you've got from this, I'm assuming it's from GMCA. Please correct me if I'm wrong with that. But is there a time frame in terms of the 225? Although it sounds a high number, I've got a funny feeling that that will get eaten up quite quickly. And I just wondered, in terms of a time frame of referrals, is there a certain time frame of delivery?
Yeah, all learners have to be complete by March 2022. So the time frame's short on this. You know, we urge businesses to apply early, because if you're talking from some programs are up to 16 weeks, so they've got to be on quite early. Some are shorter, so it just depends on the learner and employer need as to when you apply, but the sooner the better, really.
And again, similar question to what I asked Hugh, in terms of referrals, is it just a case of getting in contact with Stephanie, Lucy, or yourself in terms of that, or is there an actual email address specific? So we can share that out, obviously, but just how would people make referrals?
Yeah, I would imagine later on in the slides there'll be some contact details, but if there's not, we'll email it out to everybody, or you can, Nathan, if that's okay. And we're ready now, so you know, please send them through as soon as you want.
Brilliant, that's great, thank you. Has anyone else got any further questions before we move on to the next part of the presentation? No? Okay, over to you guys again then.
Perfect, thanks for that, Nathan. So going into the second part of the presentation now, we're going to talk a little about our work and our success to date. So the BIS and West Midlands Energy Hub Green Homes Grant Skills Competition, we had 555 insulation workers trained to NVQ level 2 since January 2021. We are lead provider for the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, ESF Skills for Growth, Retrofit Skills Hub. Working with the Retrofit Academy, the Manchester College, Oldham College and Fabric to upskill 1,140 individuals in retrofit from level 2 to level 5, including insulation and building treatments, fenestration and cladding, retrofit coordinators, assessors and advisors, heat pump installation, solar panel installation, and understanding domestic retrofit and carbon literacy for our businesses. So the task ahead, so we've got this 750,000 construction workers are on the verge of retirement over the next 15 years. So using data from the Climate Change Committee balance scenario, CITB's modelling suggests that an additional 350,000 FTE workers will be needed by 2028. So to deliver improvements to existing buildings that will reduce energy demand, an increase of around 13% on the current size of the workforce based on current technologies and ways of working. This has the potential to give thousands of people a valuable new career opportunity as we emerge from a time of national crisis. So it's essential that the construction sector has a pipeline of skilled and motivated people coming through the system into the sector to make the green transition possible. In Greater Manchester alone, they are tasked with retrofitting 60,000 residential and commercial buildings a year to be zero carbon by 2038. Cooperatives and small businesses have led the way to make homes fit for the future, but not on the scale needed due to financial restrictions, skill shortages and inappropriate supply chains. Local authorities will need to work with contractors, retrofit training providers and communities to make the North West green and prosperous. Training providers, including our Low Carbon Academy, need to rise to the challenge to support the training, upskilling and further development required to meet the sector's skill gaps to achieve the net zero targets. So our retrofit offer, we have available the MVQ level 2 installation and building treatment qualifications. So there is listed some of the courses that we have available, from the cavity wall, draft proofing, fenestration, floor, internal insulation. And then we also have the level 2 understanding domestic retrofit, retrofit assessor, retrofit coordinator, solar thermal systems, heat pump installations, and a carbon literacy, sustainable, modern and lean construction. So the eligibility for these courses, we have a sign-up process which can either be delivered remotely or face-to-face. The learners will then receive job knowledge questions and then complete an on-site assessment with professional discussions, product evidence and witness statements. The learner must be employed or self-employed with a minimum of 2 years experience in construction, or a Greater Manchester resident, or they can work for an employer with a registered trading address within Greater Manchester, or work on a construction site or residential sites within Greater Manchester. So that concludes the end of part 2. So again, we're open for any more questions that anybody might have.
Well, from the look of that, Steph, it looks like it's just moved loads of questions again. So I do apologise for that. But very quickly, in terms of, this is obviously targeted towards people who are in employment currently. What's the length and frequency of the training? So is it a block 1 week, 2 week course? Is, you know, what's the, I appreciate it's going to vary depending on the course that actually undertake, but could you provide a rough example of what that might look like?
Yeah, of course. So again, depending on the learner and the course that they're undertaking, this can be completed anything between 1 to 3 months.
Right, okay. And is that part-time? I'll take it then. Is that an evening? Is that during the day? So I'm just trying to think from an employer perspective. Would that require the employee to take time out of work to go and do the course, or is it something that's done of an evening, or is it a mixture of the two?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, we work with companies and it depends on their needs. So, for example, I've had a recent company he's got 7 learners. He wants to get all the learners through the questions as quickly as possible. So we've actually arranged for those 7 learners to come into our Worsley Centre with one of our assessors, and they're just going to spend the afternoon going through the questions. Other companies or self-employed learners prefer for the learners just to work on the questions in the evenings, over the weekends, and then the on-site practical assessment will be carried out at their workplace. So again, it's not taking time away from them.
No, thanks for that, Steph. And you mentioned there your site in Worsley. I take it that's where kind of like the training will take place, and then obviously, like you mentioned there about going back to their individual companies, be that kind of like a construction site or one of our homes in an estate across Greater Manchester, that the observations will take place by the assessor? Yeah,
that's right. So if obviously, like the company that we've just dealt with, anybody does require to come on site with us because they do find that completing the questions that way would be easy for them, then we can set them up at our Worsley Centre with the assessor. Our learning support officer, Tony Bewley, has connected with the company. He's already working out a programme with them. So again, we can put you in contact with Tony. But majority of them do tend to do it in the evenings or weekends. But again, Tony is available for support over Zoom calls, sets up group sessions through Zoom as well.
No, thank you for that, Steph. That's really useful. And again, I suppose similar question to what I asked previously around timeframes. Is there a limited time frame? Because 1,000 individuals, that's quite a number to get in if it needs to be delivered before the end of March next year.
No, this one's July, thankfully, Nathan. And again, it's a range of courses delivered by different partners. So what we deliver in-house is the MVQ qualifications. We have the Retrofit Academy as our partner doing the coordinators, assessors, advisors. Manchester College doing solar, Oldham College doing the heat pumps, and then we have Fabric upskilling SMEs in sustainable futures. So you can have a course from, say, I think the Retrofit Academy have got some courses that can be completed in as little as 3 days, whereas an MVQ qualification can take up to around 12 weeks. So there's plenty of time to apply, but depending on what your needs are, again, we just advise applying early because we are inundated with applications because there's not much retrofit training around Manchester. Beyond that, there's nothing else that's free. So yeah, make the most of this opportunity while it's here.
Thanks, Sam. I think you hit on a couple of points there, definitely, that in my time being made aware of retrofit activity and speaking with different colleges across Greater Manchester, the various stages of getting their sites actually geared up to be able to deliver the courses. So in terms of actual the training as well, that can vary between colleges. And they're still kind of on that journey like all of us are in terms of actually getting it all in place ready to actually undertake the work. Okay, brilliant, that's fantastic. Really appreciate your time there, Sam, Steph and Lucy, in terms of that presentation. In terms of contact details, if you let me have those and how people can make referrals, I will then distribute amongst the people on the call today and we'll get that sent out. I think I've got one last question. How about if we've got a potential partner who refers kind of like 200 employees to you? So is there a maximum number of employees from any organisation that they can say, well, actually, we can only allow 50 from each organisation?
Yeah, it is designed for SMEs because it's under the ESF Skills for Growth campaign in Manchester. However, there is an opportunity for us to put cases forward for GM businesses. So we can certainly cater for up to 200 at any one time. But if there is more than that, we can put a case forward to GMCA.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Sam. That's really useful to know.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, thank you. And again, just finally, one last apology from me about kind of like the confusion over the different links from today. We will be putting the link on for Athena Live onto kind of like the YouTube and sharing that with people. So if you have got colleagues you'd like to share that with, please do so. And if you've got any questions in relation to the presentations today, please get in contact with me or get in contact with Northwest Skills Academy or Generation UK, and we can just go from there. So thank you all for coming along, and I will speak to you all soon. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.